Steve, and thank you, Nate, and also thanks to you guys for being here today. I'm excited to have the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about some of my experiences and how they might relate to some of your experiences in entrepreneurship. So before I start today, I want to give you a little bit more backstory on myself. This is, I think, my third or fourth time presenting in this class. And so I must not have gotten it right before. They want me to keep coming back until I get it right. Maybe I'll get it right this time, and then they won't invite me back. No, I'm kidding. It's really a pleasure to be here today. But the reason I feel like I need to give you a little more backstory on myself is today I'm going to be dishing out advice. And I don't often do that. In the past, when I've done these lectures, it's been more just kind of about business, maybe some learning about my companies. Today, I'm actually going to be talking to you about the lifestyle of being an entrepreneur, and I'm going to hand out some advice. And so I feel like if I'm going to give you some advice, you should know who I am, and that way you can decide whether or not you want to take my advice. I have 4 kids. One of my oldest child, Kylie, is on a mission serving in Kiev, Ukraine right now, and my second oldest child, Austin Karren, is sitting right there. So he's a senior at Lone Peak. So if you need to jab him at all, he's right there today. So while I'm giving you a little backstory on myself, we'll loop this little video on the Karren family. If it works, maybe I have to be connected. Here we go. So you can just see some slides of my family and some of the stuff that we're interested in. So as Steve mentioned, I'm mountain grown. I grew up here in Provo. My dad was a professor at BYU for 20 years. He was an entrepreneur after that as well. So I grew up in the 80s, right? It was when I was going to high school. And I did a lot of computer-aided drafting, which was a totally new thing back then. I ran on the cross-country team, skied. I think my senior year in high school, I skied 18 times at Sundance before Christmas. It's one of my claims to fame. Don't ask me about my grades that semester in high school. I did manage to get into BYU, but that's another story. Camped, studied, worked as a river guide. After my mission, I was a river guide on the Colorado River for a couple of summers. That's how I put myself through school. And I ran a snowmobile concession in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, shortly after marrying my wife, Krista, in 1993. Served a mission in Fortaleza, Brazil. Anybody in here served a mission in Brazil? Woohoo! All right, we got 2. Served in Brazil, loved that experience, really helped widen my kind of view of the world. I'm married to Krista. She was a student here at BYU. We met here while we were going to school. She's from San Diego. 4 wonderful kids. You saw some pictures. And in terms of the interests, I think you probably saw the pictures. You saw what we like to do. So let's see if we can get it to advance. Okay, career story. This is the last backstory slide, and then we'll get straight to the advice. After I got my degree at BYU in computer science, back then they would let almost anyone in that program, so that's how I got in that program. I wanted to work at a company where I could get some experience. I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was my goal. That was my objective. But I thought that I would need some life and work experience before just setting out and starting a company. Back then, kind of mid-90s, it wasn't really quite as easy to be an entrepreneur. It was really only, kind of the really crazy people that were entrepreneurs. And to some degree, it wasn't even as respected and admired as it is today. So I went to work at a company called Novell, which some of you are probably familiar with. It was a networking company, software networking company. And I lasted there for about a year, and then I went to a company called Home Financial Network, which was a startup. And the reason I didn't really last at Novell was I had heard all these stories about being a programmer and staying up late and eating pizza and drinking a lot of caffeine-free Dr. Pepper or whatever. These crazy stories about teams work like crazy, and then they release their product, and then they go on vacation for a week, and their boss buys them a Porsche. Turns out that was Microsoft, wasn't Novell. At Novell, the team that I got hired into was showing up at 9, kind of doing a little maintenance on the code, going home at 4. I was super bored. So I didn't last there very long, to just be perfectly honest. While I was there, I created a couple products, did some fun stuff, but had to go to a startup. There wasn't enough energy for me at that large company. But it was good to get that big company experience and kind of see, okay, that's how big companies work. I don't know if that's for me. So I went to this startup called Home Financial Network that they were inventing online banking. Again, this was like 1996. You guys probably don't even know what non-online banking is, but we invented that. And I lasted there for a year. And the reason was because after working for a startup for a year, I knew I just had to go do my own. I figured out that the guys that I was working for, they were pretty smart, but I thought maybe I could pull something off. So I started my own company in 1998 called Wingate Web. And at the time, the internet was pretty new, websites were pretty new. We were just building websites for people. We were building database-driven websites and putting people online, taking their stuff that was on their network and putting it online. And we were having fun with that. And we did a project for Novell where they hired us to build this system that would let them manage a big tech conference that they used to produce called BrainShare. And we were able to productize that. So Wingate Web became this company that had an online software as a service solution for large tech companies to produce their conferences and events. So a couple buzzwords went out there. Does everybody know what software as a service is? Raise your hand if you do know what software as a service is. Okay, looks like about half. Software as a service means instead of putting your product in a package and shipping it and they buy it, it's offered on the web for a subscription price. So what we did at Wingate Web was we built this tool that would allow large corporations like Apple, like Microsoft, Hewlett-Packard, Cisco, Oracle, Salesforce, to produce large technical conferences where 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 of their customers and partners would come to these events, and they would use Wingate Web systems to produce and deliver these events. In 2004, a large media company that was based out of the Bay Area came to me and said, listen, we actually own and produce about 100 events. We own technical magazines and publications. We want to buy Wingate Web. We want to buy your company. And we're going to use your software on all the properties that we own, the media properties that we own. So we sold. We were really excited, right? We'd only been doing this for 5 years, but we were going to have the opportunity to cash out. So we sold our company to this media company. And we took jobs with this media company. We became employees. I was the general manager of their software division. And guess what those guys did to my software company as soon as they got hold of it? They broke it, right? They used it to make the media properties that they owned more profitable. They actually fired about 100 people that they had on staff. They had gone through a restructuring of their business, and they had eliminated a lot of people. And they brought our technology on board as a way to get things done cheaper. And it made their company more profitable. And as a result, a couple years later, the whole media company got sold because they were now profitable. But it broke the company that I built, this Wingate Web company. And to make a story that's gone a little long short, we were able to negotiate with the owners of that media company to allow us to buy the asset that we had sold them, this conference management software. We bought it back. And so we took the money that we had made in selling it, and we just bought it back. And we were out separate again. It was kind of like Wingate Web 2.0. And in the second version of the company, we were tracking to about $6 million in revenue, and we were losing $1 million that first year because, again, it was a turnaround play. By the end of the year, in 2006, we had turned it around so that we did not lose the $1 million. And by the end of the year, in 2007, we were at $12 million in revenue. And the year after that, we were at $15 million in revenue. And the year after that, we were at $18 million in revenue. So we grew it very aggressively. And so in 2008, I sold that business again. It was just on a super growth trajectory, and it was making tons of money. So we sold it to a company for cash by the name of the Active Network. And if you've ever signed up for a marathon or something like that, you've probably seen active.com. It was that company that bought my business. And guess what? I became the GM of a division of a large company again. And so I worked for those guys for a couple years. But this time, we sold the company well, and they took good care of it, and they bought some other businesses, and I helped them assemble a division of their company that today does over $100 million in revenue. And so we didn't buy it back. We stayed with them, we got that done, and we left and we did other projects. After leaving the Active Network, I started an app development consultancy in 2010, invested in a really cool productivity app called Appigo. And then in 2012, co-founded Moki, which is a VC-backed company. If you go into a retail location and you see like a kiosk as a point of sale or a tablet, iPad as a point of sale, what Moki does is we provide the management software for those point of sale systems and kiosks that are used in retail locations and other places. So that's my story. I've done bootstrapping, I've sold companies, I've bought companies, I've invested in companies. I've worked as a GM for large companies. I've worked as an engineer for large companies. I've done VC-backed companies. I've had a lot of projects and a lot of experiences that have helped me gain some perspective on what it's like to be an entrepreneur. So I want to share a few thoughts and advice and tips with you guys today based on those experiences. So I'm going to call this presentation 5 Keys to Awesome. You just need to do these 5 things, and you're going to be awesome as an entrepreneur. Except for each of the 5 things has 5 things. And there's more than 5 things, but that's what's in the presentation. So these are entrepreneurship lessons learned. So lesson number 1, I call this know yourself. What do I mean by this? Who in here is thinking that at some point you might want to be involved in a startup, be an entrepreneur, or have some sort of business that you own or operate? It looks like definitely the majority. Okay, so everyone in here is thinking about being involved in a startup or a business of some sort. I would recommend that you think really hard about the kind of business owner that you want to be. There's different kinds of companies. There's VC-backed companies. My company, Moki, we've raised over $15 million in funding in the last 3 or 4 years. And so that's a very, very high growth, high stakes play. And it's been really fun to be involved in a company like that and to kind of see how that is. But the first company that I built, we didn't have VC backing. We bootstrapped that company, and we got a lot of revenue off that business and had a good exit. So you don't have to have a VC-backed startup that ends up becoming a unicorn with $1 billion valuation to be a successful entrepreneur. Now, if that's what you want to do, more power to you. I'm excited for you. Let me know how I can help you, and I want a ride on your private jet when you accomplish that, okay? But I know a lot of entrepreneurs who have chosen a path that is not necessarily that path. Maybe they run a small business. Maybe they bootstrap their company. What I would suggest is that you figure out what's right for you. And don't get on the wrong path. If you don't see yourself as maybe being the next Josh James or Zuckerberg, if that's not you, that doesn't mean you can't be an entrepreneur. Now, if that is you, that's fine too. But think hard about what you want to be. And also, you need to think about what kind of company you're creating and what your funding path should be. Sometimes VC funding is not the right path. Another point, don't measure your success necessarily by other people's successes. It's really easy as an entrepreneur. You're one of the boats on the water. You're looking out at all the other boats on the water. Maybe you see somebody going way faster than you, way cooler. They're getting way more buzz. They steal your employees. They steal your customers, whatever. Don't measure yourself by other people's success. Measure yourself by your own goals. And you can definitely look at others to understand their success, and you can be excited for others about their success, but don't compare yourself so much to what other people are doing, because maybe they have different goals and different circumstances than you. You need to own your destiny. You got to figure out what your life plan is. What's going to make you fulfilled as a person? It may not be what you think. You got to think hard about that. What are your goals? Where do you want to end up? I would think hard about these things as you consider your entrepreneurial journey. You need to expand your life picture. I count working for some of these large companies, selling my company, having them break my company, By the way, the CEO of the company that completely ruined Wingate Web the first time became an amazing life mentor for me. You've got to expand your life experience. You're young. Read, travel, do stuff. Don't just be solely focused on this one thing so that you become so myopic that you're not interesting. The experiences I had working for large companies helped me understand what I wanted to do as an entrepreneur better. Working as a river guide, working as a snowmobile concessionaire, those kinds of things really helped me. This summer, Austin and I and our family, we did a food truck on the side. We just thought it would be fun to sell shave ice, so we built a food truck. And we learned a lot about customer service through doing that. Okay, so story. I got a picture of me riding a bike here. I love to mountain bike. In the summer of 2009, I took that summer off after leaving the active network and before starting my consulting company. And I decided, I really want to ride my bike a lot. And so I had a friend that said, hey, you should come ride this race called Leadville in Colorado. Has anybody ever heard of the Leadville Trail 100 mountain bike race? 1, 2, 3, okay, like 5. Okay, so Leadville is a 100-mile mountain bike race in the mountains of Colorado. You start at 10,000 feet elevation, and you climb Mount Columbine. You climb about 14,000 feet. It's an out and back race. And the deal is, if you can finish that race in under 12 hours, you get a belt buckle, coveted Leadville belt buckle. And if you don't finish the race in under 12 hours, no belt buckle. That's just the deal. And so I wanted the buckle. That's what I decided I wanted to do for the summer of 2009. I wanted that belt buckle really bad. So I trained like crazy. And about a month before the race, I crashed out in Alpine. There's a park called, what's a park called out there, Austin? Lambert Park. And there was this tree that had fallen over the trail, and I was looking down, listening to music, riding real fast, and I crashed head first into that tree, and I broke my neck. I bulged 2 discs in my neck, cracked a vertebrae, got a concussion. I woke up in a pile of red ants. It was like a month before the race. And I went to the doctor, and they said, you're going to be okay. You just got to chill out. We're not going to have to put you in surgery or anything, but you got to chill out. And so I got a neck brace, and I continued my training. And also, I wasn't working that summer, so we were doing a lot of boating. I was learning to surf behind the boat with my neck brace on. And then a couple weeks after that, I got this gnarly sinus infection, and I just was super sick. And it came time for the race, and I went up with my friends to Colorado, and I wasn't looking good. I was kind of looking not so good. And I had the neck brace on and stuff, and my friends were like, one of my friends is a doctor, and he was like, listen, Tom, you don't have to do this race, okay? This was just something we trained for. It was for fun. You don't have to do it. But I went to this pre-race meeting, and the guy that was the founder of the race gave a kind of a pep talk to the racers. And one of the things he said was, he used a mining analogy, because in Leadville, Colorado, they were miners. And so he used this mining analogy, and he said, sometimes in life you got to dig deep. You got to get your shovel. You got to dig really deep to find the precious ore. And he said, tomorrow you guys are going to set out to do something really difficult. You're going to do this ride. You've all had personal stories that brought you here. What I want you to know is that you can do more than you think you can do, and you can be more than you think you can be. And I thought about that. I thought, man, you know what? I can do more than I think I can do. I can ride Leadville with a broken neck. So I was able to ride Leadville. And the morning of the race, it was snowing, and it was muddy. It was a disaster. I started the race. We're going up the first hill with this guy from Florida. He was like in Lycra. He was a dead man. And he's throwing up after the first hill. And long story short, I got the buckle. Okay, so thank you. But what I want you to remember from that is just that simple thing. Dig deep. You can do more than you think you can do. You're capable of being more than you think. That's my story about knowing yourself. Okay, be authentic is my next one. Who knows what this is a picture of? Man's first step on the moon. Thank you. That's pretty authentic, right? I don't think you could fake that. Of course, I know there's a conspiracy theory about faking that, but I don't believe it. I think Neil Armstrong really pulled it off. Authenticity. People will follow you off the edge of the cliff if you're authentic. And you really can't fake it, right? Like, you can fake it for a little while. You hear that phrase, fake it till you make it. Really, you got to be, actually, I think you got to be authentic. And so when you think about your program, what it is you're going to do for being an entrepreneur, it better be something that you can pull off, something that you can be authentic at. I have a good friend. I won't mention his name because I don't want to embarrass him, but he's also one of the associate founders in the BYU Center for Entrepreneurship. He's an amazing guy. He's an amazing company. He wears shorts and a hoodie to work. He's kicking butt. He's doing better than anybody that I know in startup land right now. And all these VCs call him all the time, and they want to put money in his company. And sometimes they show up at his office, and they'll see him in his cubicle. He's wearing a hoodie. He's wearing a baseball cap. He's doing what he's doing. He's an authentic guy, right? He's not wearing a suit for those guys. And I really believe in that. And I think teams like to form up around authentic people. You got to be the best version of yourself. We all have different versions of ourselves, right? There's the lazy part of ourselves. There's the passionate part of ourselves. If you're going to really be successful as an entrepreneur, you're going to have to dig deep, to borrow that terminology. You're going to have to find that best part of yourself to become the leader that you need to be a good entrepreneur. You're going to have to get your game on and get your ducks in a row. Like, whatever you got going on, fix it. If you want to be an entrepreneur, work that out. Get your game on. You're going to have to be positive, super contagious, right? Like, bad attitude, it's a contagion in a startup environment. You're going to have a lot of positivity and passion around yourself and your idea if you want to be successful. Number 5, don't be a narcissist. And I put Trump in there as an example. Any big Trump fans in here? I hope I don't offend you. I think he's a great example of a narcissistic business leader, okay? And I don't mean to be overly negative or bring too much negativity into it, but I have seen that different careers can have kind of lifestyle consequences. If you were a welder in the 1970s, you might have gotten exposed to asbestos, and you could get sick from that, right? So what are the kind of things that could cause problems for entrepreneurs? Well, one of the things that I'm going to diagnose, Dr. Karren's going to diagnose today, is narcissism is a really common side effect of successful entrepreneurship. You'll see that a lot of really successful entrepreneurs, they create a cult of personality. And you kind of have to some degree. You have to kind of create that authenticity and cult of personality to create that bubble, to make something that should be impossible actually happen. But the consequence and the side effect of that sometimes can be narcissism, which is really defined as just kind of over-the-top clinical selfishness. And so one of the other things I just want to say as kind of a disclaimer on this advice today is, don't think of me as being like a good example on all of this. A lot of this I've learned by being the bad example, okay? So I'm not claiming that I'm perfect at all. I'm just saying I've seen in myself and I've seen in others a trend towards narcissism and in kind of positions of power. Watch out for that. Don't let that ruin things for you. All right. Lead by example. In this picture, I'm struggling to figure out which of the two guys in front is the leader. I think it's the guy in the middle. Okay, and I use this picture of this military group for a reason. There's all kinds of styles of leadership, right? There's kind of the style where there's the guy in the back with the bullhorn, and then there's a team out front, and he's barking instructions. I've been that guy. I've been that guy in some of my attempts at leadership. And then there's times in life where, we're storming the castle with our team, and we're out in front with our sword, right? And we're on our horse, and we're leading the charge, right? That's the kind of leader that we need to be. You need to lead by example. So we got to be engaged. If you start a company and you're not engaged in what's going on, that's a bad thing. Company culture is observed and evolved. It's not just created out of whole cloth by human resources. Okay? What was the problem I talked about at Novell when I started there? The place was like dead, right? Bad culture. talented guy out of school. I didn't stay because there was no energy behind the place. They had amazing HR, right? All the benefits were there, but the culture of the place wasn't right, in my opinion. And so at the companies that I've built, we've tried to create a culture where the leaders rolled up their sleeves and did stuff with the team. And I think that made a difference. How you treat people matters. I could probably tell this story without getting anyone in trouble. I had a professor at BYU who was in the computer science department who, when you're a senior in the computer science degree back in the day, you had to write a compiler. A compiler is the thing that actually compiles other programs. It's hard. And it's a pass-fail kind of a thing. If your compiler works, the TA writes a program. If your compiler compiles his program and runs it and gives the right answer, you get an A. If you can't, run it, you get an F, right? Or you get to try again. I worked really hard on my compiler. I got it done before Thanksgiving. It was fall semester. Went into the TA, he ran his program, passed, got an A. Got a phone call from the teacher that evening. He said, listen, I got a company. I want you to come work for it. So before I even graduated from college, I had a job at a company here in Utah County. I'm not going to mention who the professor was or what the company was, because I'm going to tell a story about something I didn't like. So I went to work for this company. I didn't think they had a good culture. They had a culture of paying their people less than they were worth and telling people that they had to stay at the company. They kind of told us all, no one can leave. You've received training here, and if you leave, you have to pay your training back. So you have to stay. You're stuck here at our company. Hope you have a good life because you're stuck here at our company earning less. Hope you like your job, right? Bad. You cannot treat people that way. You cannot control people. Don't ever try that. You can only influence people in your company, in life, with your family. You can be an influence for good. You cannot control anyone. Don't even try it. I left there after 4 months. I was the first person to ever leave that company. After I left, about 50 other people quit. They were like, hey, Karren pulled it off. He got out of here. He got a job at Novell. Okay, so don't do that. Don't be that guy. Don't pull your lawyer in and tell someone that they have to stay at your company. If you want people to work for you, give them a reason why they should work for you. Okay? Set the example when you react to failure and challenges. Bad stuff will happen. How you react to it will be all the difference. If you get mad and you throw stuff around when bad stuff happens, all you do is you scare your employees and your family. Right, Austin? Okay, so you got to react appropriately to stuff. Be accountable. Now, there's an accountability paradox in entrepreneurship. I hear entrepreneurs talk about this company's going to have accountability. If you make a mistake, you're going to have to, be accountable for it. Can you think of what might be wrong with that? Fear of failure. Nate said maybe people won't want to try stuff, right? So you got to be careful with accountability, right? People have to be accountable, but you have to have a way for people also to be able to express their ideas and to try stuff in your company. The accountability part comes in as, what did we learn from what we did, okay? So what I mean by be accountable is not that you can be afraid to fail. Just be willing to change and learn from the things that you encounter. There's a lot about leadership that you can learn from others. These are just a few points I wanted to share with you today. Okay, build awesome teams. This is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory team after the landing of the Curiosity rover on another planet. This is a pretty good team, right? Does anybody know the story of the JPL team from NASA? Is it the core NASA team? No. Different team, right? This was kind of the startup within NASA, right? These guys are excited because they landed a robot on another planet. That's pretty impressive. And they're celebrating. So I want to talk about awesome teams. I've never built a team quite this awesome, so I'm not claiming I've done that, but I want to talk about some of the things I've learned about in building teams. Number one, learn to align incentives and to effectively manage conflict. What does it mean to align incentives? Does anybody want to offer an idea on that? Yeah.
Performance to rewards.
Performance to rewards. That's very good. Thank you. If you get everybody pulling in the same direction, it's more likely that you're going to move the object, right? And so aligned incentives, that could sound kind of like an HR buzzword, but what it means is figure out a way to get your team so that everybody has an incentive to win and so that everybody wants to pull in the same direction. And that means the founders, the management, the employees, everybody, you got to line it up. The investors. When there's conflict there, that can be a big problem on teams. Surround yourself with people that make you better, right? Like, who in here is perfect? No, oh, we don't have any narcissists in here, I guess. We all have strengths and weaknesses, right? You got to know yourself, find out what your strengths and your weaknesses are. And then what you're going to do is you're going to bring people in on your team who might be better at doing pieces of your project that are better than you at that particular component. So for me, I know that I'm pretty good at sales, but I'm really not good at sales management. I can sell. Like, you get me in front of a customer, I'll make a case for why they should buy my product. But managing a team of sales guys and motivating those guys, that's not a strength for me. So I know that I need to have somebody on my team that's going to do a better job of that than me. In fact, one of the things I've realized as an entrepreneur is that there's always somebody that can do a specific job better than me. My job is to find those people and get them on the team and get them aligned. Okay, so surround yourself with good people. Watch out for overlap. Overlap can create a problem. Overlap means the thing that you're really good at is also the thing that your peer is really, really good at, and the two of you are both good at that one thing. That's not ideal. I think it's better to have A and B, right? This guy's good at the tech, this guy's good at the business. Let's put them together. Give people a path to personal and career growth. Guess what people do that work for you, that work with you, if they figure out that there's no path for personal or career growth in your company? They bail. Look at my career experience. Unnamed consulting company by BYU professor, bailed in 4 months. Novell, bailed in a year. HFN, bailed in a year. Why? Those guys could not challenge me. Those guys could not offer a career path. So that's a challenge that you have as an entrepreneur. How do you provide a career path to your people that gets them where they want to go? Guess what? Sometimes you can't. And you know what you do then is you let them go, right? If you can no longer provide a career path for them, then they've outgrown you and they move on to the next project and you remain friends with them. You don't pull your lawyer in and tell them they have to stay. Okay, number 4, hold on loosely. You can influence, but you cannot control people. Good people behavior comes back to you. My VP of sales at Moki was a great guy early in the project, but he wasn't the right guy for where the project ended up. And so he moved on to another company. He called me and gave me my biggest lead of the quarter early in January. Why? Because we're friends. Because we parted as friends, right? I did not try to manipulate him in any way. I treated him very fairly. We'll be friends for years. What you do to pay it forward with people will come back to you in droves. So just be really careful with your people behavior. And then one more story. I just have one more slide, so do you think we're okay on time? Okay. Break bread, do stuff, and bond. So that first company that I told you about, Wingate Web, I mentioned that it was an online SaaS company. We built conference management systems. One of the things we had to do was when we were going to pull off a really big event like an Apple Worldwide Developer Conference or a Salesforce Dreamforce, we had to take the team that was working on that project and go on site. And sometimes we would go on site in the Bay Area or Las Vegas or New York, or sometimes even Paris or London. We were doing about 100 big events a year, so our teams are going on site. Sometimes when we would go on site, bad stuff would happen. Like one time I went on site to an event for Hewlett-Packard in Portugal, and we had to have some servers at the event to run the systems that we wanted to run, and they got stuck in customs. And the customs people would not let our servers through, right? So we had to stay up for a couple nights figuring out how to solve that problem. The whole team, we worked 48 hours straight to solve that one. And so we had all these experiences at Wingate Web where we would take 10 or 15 or 20 people and we would leave for a week, and we would go almost do like a micro startup for a week. We'd go build a network at a venue, get 10,000 people checked into the event, hand their badges out, get them into their sessions. And it was like 10 minutes of just pure fear, and then 2 days of boredom, right? And so, but our team bonded over these things because we would go work for 2 days straight, and then we would go out to dinner, and we learned to trust each other and to depend on each other. And it was just this real natural thing in that business that created a bond between the teams. So I don't know, based on what your company is, how do you do it? You'll have to figure that out. That'll be an exercise for you. But I recommend finding ways to go do fun stuff together, to bond, and to break bread. Find those experiences that will bond your team. So those are a few points that I can offer on building awesome teams. And I can tell you that one of the greatest pleasures that I have had as an entrepreneur is not necessarily the money I've made or the exit, where you cash out or whatever. It's really the building of awesome teams. That is the thing that gives me the most joy as an entrepreneur, is to see a team coalesce around a problem and to grow in their careers and become a cohesive team. That's one of the greatest joys you can experience. And I highly recommend that you focus on that in your entrepreneurial journeys. Okay, last slide. Be the best at your thing. If you're going to be a successful business person, employee, entrepreneur, whatever, mom, dad, brother, sister, whatever, you got to be the best at your thing. Now, I don't know what your thing is, which is why I have kind of a conceptual picture up here. I don't know what that thing is either. It looks pretty cool. But you got to be the best at your thing, whatever that is. And I think that starts with passion, right? You're going to need passion in spades. You're going to have to be so excited about what you're doing that other people almost can't stand you. A couple years ago, I was so excited about cybersecurity. By the way, cybersecurity is super messed up. If anybody wants to work a project in cybersecurity, come see me because we need more good projects there. I think that we are, in the computing industry, in the tech industry, we are dancing passionately on the lip of the volcano when it comes to what could happen to us because of cybersecurity. But I digress. Anyway, I got really passionate about cybersecurity a couple years ago, and I happened to go on this cruise with the Founders Organization. And a couple of the older founders had the bad luck of sitting by me on a bus. And these are like retired people that never did anything with technology. They're amazing entrepreneurs and leaders, but it was like the worst luck that they had to sit by me on a bus for 3 hours in Brazil on the way to a cruise and listen to me talk to them about like credit card fraud and cybersecurity for like 3 hours with retired people, okay? But my point is, by the way, none of those guys will talk to me anymore, but you got to have a passion for what you're doing, okay? And I think they turned all their online banking off too. Okay, grit. You're going to get knocked on your back over and over and over as an entrepreneur. The ones that are successful are the ones that get back up. So back to Wingate Web. We were doing this event in Las Vegas that was a big name event, big brand event at the time. And our systems weren't working right. And the server, smoke was coming out of the server. And 10,000 people were stuck in a line. And all of our check-in stuff and our badge printing stuff was broken. And the line went across the building, down the escalators, out through the lobby, out onto the sidewalk, around the block. 10,000 people. The keynote was supposed to start in like 10 minutes. And 10,000 people were stuck in line, and they couldn't get their badges. And my boss came over to me, and he's like, dude, this is not a good day for you. This is not like why I bought your company. And I said, you know what you should do is, you guys have been really trying to get a lot of buzz around your events, saying that your events are sold out or whatever. Why don't you get some press? Why don't you guys do a press release on this, like how big your event is? Like, your event is so big, it broke the registration. And so they got photographers, and they went and took pictures of people in the line. They published a big thing about, look, our event was so huge, the registration system broke, right? Now, we fixed it, but kind of just shows the idea that, you're going to get knocked over. You're going to have embarrassing moments. You're going to have bad stuff happen. The winners get back up, brush themselves off, and get back at it. In fact, I know a couple companies that they get to 200,000 of MRR, monthly recurring revenue, in 6 months or whatever, and then they fail. Why? Because they didn't encounter those hard things that taught them what they need to. So you're going to have to be super gritty. You're going to get knocked on your back. You're going to have to be able to get back up, brush yourself off, and get back at it. At the end of the day, the guy that gets to ride the waves or the gal that gets to ride the wave is the one that's standing there with their surfboard. So if you get tumbled, get back up, get back on your surfboard. Okay, determination and drive. Really, this is kind of like grit, right? Like, how determined are you? You need to be appropriately stubborn. You need to make sure that you're listening, but you're going to have a lot of drive to be successful at being the best at your thing. So vision. A lot of people say, oh, that guy's got a vision, right? Like, he has the vision. Zuckerberg had a vision, right? How do you get a vision? Business model canvas? I don't think that's how you get a vision. Now, I'm not knocking the business model canvas. Do that, okay? I'm just saying, like, the vision for what you're going to accomplish, where does that come from? Actually, I think the business model canvas is a fantastic instrument to help you clarify your vision. I think your vision comes from a few things. Number one, knowledge. You got to know some stuff. It's hard to have a vision for the future if you don't know anything, okay? So if you're going to want to have a vision for the future for something, you better understand the domain that you're working in. You got to be creative, right? Henry Ford, when he went out and he asked people, this is probably a wives' tale, right? But they say that he went out and he asked people what they wanted, and what did they say? Faster horse, right? And he gave him a car. Okay. So creativity, right? Like, your customers probably aren't going to tell you exactly what you should do. You have to be super creative. You need experiences. Experiences teach us about life. You have to go out and live and gain experience in order for you to be able to have any kind of vision. Beliefs. I think that our beliefs at our core come from our knowledge and from our experiences. So go have knowledge and experiences, and then start to form strong opinions. Talk to your friends about things. Form some ideas and some opinions. And then most of all, take action, right? No vision matters if you don't take action. If Zuckerberg had not built the dating website, we would not have Facebook. Maybe that would be a good thing. Okay. But actions, right? Like, go act on your beliefs. Go act on your experiences. Do something. And then finally, final point, execution. Iterate on your work. Make it the best. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here with you today.